Good day, everyone. For teleSUR, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We start off today in Uruguay, where the Latin American left has gained victory once again by retaining the presidency there. Tabaré Vázquez of the Broad Front Party won Uruguay's presidential elections on Sunday, giving the leftist party its third straight presidential victory. Vázquez obtained 56.6% of the vote compared to his rival Luis Lacalle's 43.4%. The Broad Front Party also holds the parliamentary majority. Vázquez pledges to implement inclusive policies during his term, vowing to involve opposition parties in his initiatives. And we now turn to Colombia, where it appears increasingly likely that the nation's stalled peace talks between FARC rebels and the government will resume. The peace talks may jumpstart following the release of General Rubén Darío Alzate, who was captured by FARC guerrillas in November. Alzate and two aides were freed on Sunday in the Colombian state of Chocó during an operation facilitated by the International Red Cross. For more now on the situation in Colombia and the release of General Alzate, we go to our correspondent Charles Parkinson in Bogotá.
This morning during a TV appearance, Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos publicly called on General Rubén Darío Alzate to explain to the country what exactly he was doing when he was captured by the FARC. Now, of course, Alzate was released yesterday, 2 weeks after being detained by the FARC, having entered an area of high guerrilla activity dressed as a civilian with no security protection. That capture led Santos to postpone the peace talks, which we can now hope will get back underway. And today, the government negotiating team is flying out to Havana to hold discussions with the FARC to see where exactly the peace process is at and how they can get the talks back underway. On the part of the FARC, in the last couple of days, they've come out and very strongly called for a bilateral ceasefire, saying that that is what is needed to avoid any further situations such as that which happened with Alzate. Charles Parkinson in Bogotá, Colombia.
Both the FARC guerrilla group and the Colombian government issued statements after the liberation of General Alzate. Taking a closer look now at statements by both the government and the FARC rebels concerning General Alzate's release and the nation's peace talks, the FARC explained that its delegates in the Havana peace talks traveled to the Chocó region to help the liberation process. The rebels also stated that they believe these peace talks should not be interrupted. They have further urged the Colombian government to be consistent with its aim for achieving peace by agreeing to a bilateral ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Colombian government welcomed the releases as a positive step towards renewing peace talks. At the same time, President Juan Manuel Santos clarified that ongoing military activity is preventing the peace talks from becoming an endless discussion. The president's statement also announced that negotiators will meet in the coming days to resume the Havana peace process. And we move now to Mexico, where we continue with our special coverage of the 43 missing students from the Ayotzinapa Teachers Training College and the international movement that is demanding justice over the disappearances. After more than 2 months since their disappearance, questions remain over the whereabouts of the Ayotzinapa students in Mexico. It comes after authorities found 5 beheaded bodies in Guerrero on Saturday night, none of which belonged to the 43 missing students. Last week, 11 other bodies were also found close to the area where the students were abducted. Reports indicate that none of those cadavers belonged to the students either. Meanwhile, the global movement in solidarity with the missing students continues to grow. More than 150 cities around the world will be host today to some kind of action demanding answers from Mexican authorities. Activists are denouncing the criminalization of the youth in Mexico, as well as the U.S.-financed drug war, which has been responsible for more than 30 deaths in the country since Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto began his presidency in 2012. And to Peru now, where the United Nations COP20 Climate Change Summit has begun in the capital of Lima. Social organizations have carried out demonstrations in the run-up to the conference, urging representatives to take concrete actions to curb climate change. The country's aim, delegates from 195 United Nations member countries are meeting in Lima until Friday. On that day, representatives will release final agreements on climate change to reach an agreement on reducing greenhouse gases ahead of the organization's summit next year in Paris. In international news, we go to Ukraine, where investigators into the Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 crash continue. The airplane's remains will be shipped Monday to the Netherlands. Rebel authorities have made efforts to recover as much of the debris as possible amid the ongoing fighting in eastern Ukraine. Experts on the case will now be charged with determining whether the plane was shot down from the air or from the ground. Meanwhile, fighting continued in Donetsk as government and rebels vie for control of the local airport. The site has been disputed for months, despite both sides agreeing to a ceasefire in September. And in Syria, the United States carried out at least 30 airstrikes on the city of Raqqa over the weekend. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, 19 people, including women and children, were killed in the city, which is a stronghold of Islamic State militants. The Syrian foreign minister warned last week that U.S.-led airstrikes in his country have not weakened the IS group. And in Hong Kong, clashes between police and protesters resumed Monday. Officers armed with pepper spray and water hoses cleared the demonstrations outside government offices. Chinese authorities warned protesters that if they returned later on Monday, they would be cleared once again by police. And as always, for more on these stories and plenty others, check out our website, telesurtv.net/English. We leave you today with images and music from the Caracas Sounds Festival happening all week here in the Venezuelan capital. For teleSUR English, I'm Cody Weddle.